So here we're simplifying expressions by dividing. What you can see with all of these three is that there's a fraction line, which is, of course, a dividing line as well. So let's go into this. The first one we'll do by showing the whole thing, and then you can see what the rule is. Okay, so a to the power of 5 is a times a times a times a times a. And a to the power of 3 is a times a times a. Now, when we divide anything by itself, it just equals 1. So it effectively cancels out because we don't usually write times by 1. It's implicit when we just do it. So we cancel out. So a divided by a is 1. Again, a divided by a is 1. And again, a divided by a is 1. And what you can see on the top line, I'm left with a times a, which is a squared. Okay, let's see how we can get that pattern from the 5 and the 3. Well, 2 is just 5 minus 3. So that's what we effectively do when we're dividing. We just subtract our exponents or our powers. Okay, let's look at the second one. It's a little bit different. We've got coefficients in front of the variables, the big numbers in front of the letters. So what we do is look at simplifying the fraction 12 over 6. Now, what we know is that 6 goes into both 12 and 6. And if we divide 12 by 6, I get 2. And if I divide 6 by 6, I get 1. So that 12 over 6 now becomes 2 over 1. Now, using what we learnt before, for the powers, those are both a to the power of something. And 6 minus 2, is 4. And so we've got a to the power of 4 on the top line. The reason why it's on the top line is that that's where the biggest power is. And that will be evident when we look at the next one. We don't usually write anything divided by 1, so tidy it up by writing it just as a to the power of 4. Right, this next one. So let's look at the 14 over 21 first. The biggest number that divides into 14 and into 21 is 7. 14 divided by 7 is 2. 21 divided by 7 is 3. Okay, now let's look at our x's. Can you see that they're just x and x on the top line and bottom line? So they effectively cancel each other out, just like they did at the first one that we looked at with a. A divided by a is 1, x divided by x is 1. Now when we look at the y's, okay, you can notice that we've got y4 on the bottom line, or the denominator, and we've got y squared on the top line. Now, if we look at our powers, we've got 2 and 4. If we go 4 minus 2 is 2, but the biggest power is actually on the bottom line. So that's where the y ends up. So our y squared ends up being on the bottom line because that's where the biggest power is. If we look at the z, the same thing happens, but it's going to be on the top line because the biggest power, 3, is on the top line or the numerator. So 3 minus 2 is 1, so that's going to be z to the power of 1 on the top line. And that's how you simplify expressions by dividing.